Welcome to Module A2 of the NATMed Training Program focused on the IUCN Global Standard for Nature-Based Solutions and its use as a self-assessment tool. During the implementation of the NATMed project, the quadruple bottom-line performance of the implemented full water cycle nature-based solutions was analyzed and validated. This assessment is built on earlier steps, including the diagnosis of nature-based solutions, their implementation, and the monitoring and evaluation activities. The analysis was carried out using the IUCN Global Standard for Nature-Based Solutions, in close collaboration with IUCN-Med. This is a user-friendly framework that supports the design, validation, and scaling up of impactful solutions. By providing practical guidance on how to use this tool, and by sharing lessons learned from its application across NATMed case studies, this module aims to strengthen the capacity of trainees from the public and private sectors, as well as civil society. In doing so, it supports more effective action to address climate change, biodiversity loss, water scarcity, and the depletion of natural resources. In this module, you will learn how to use the IUCN Global Standard for Nature-Based Solutions as a practical tool to assess and strengthen NbS interventions. First, you will understand the purpose and overall structure of the IUCN Global Standard for Nature-Based Solutions. You will then explore the 8 criteria and 28 indicators of the standard and why they are essential for ensuring quality, effectiveness, and credibility in NbS design and implementation. The module will also show how the standard was applied in NATMed's case studies to improve the quality of interventions, strengthen governance processes, and support replication. In addition, you will learn how to use the self-assessment tools and templates provided by the standard to evaluate nature-based solutions in practice. You will also see how monitoring data, including key performance indicators, can be linked to performance evaluation under the standard. Finally, the module will encourage reflection on lessons learned and on how the IUCN Global Standard can be integrated into regional, nature-based solutions policies. This module is designed for technical professionals, nature-based solutions practitioners, and public authorities who are interested in planning, implementing, and evaluating nature-based solutions using a robust and internationally recognized standard. The IUCN Global Standard for Nature-Based Solutions was launched in 2020 as the first internationally recognized tool for evaluating nature-based solutions projects. It provides a comprehensive framework that helps identify good practices, highlight areas for improvement, and detect potential challenges or barriers. The standard supports analysis across the full NbS lifecycle, from clearly defining the challenges being addressed to assessing expected impacts, economic viability, and biodiversity benefits. The overall goal of the standard is to ensure that nature-based solutions are credible, scalable, and sustainable, delivering measurable benefits for both people and nature. The standard matters because it helps distinguish genuine nature-based solutions from greenwashing. It also provides a common language for communication with policymakers, funders, and the public, enables comparison across projects and regions, and supports the replication and upscaling of successful NbS interventions. The IUCN Global Standard for Nature-Based Solutions is an overarching tool designed to support the continuous improvement of NbS projects over time. It is structured around 8 criteria and 28 indicators, which together cover the key dimensions of high-quality, nature-based solutions. The first criterion looks at how effectively the solution addresses clearly defined societal challenges, such as climate adaptation, water management, or biodiversity loss. The second criterion focuses on scale, ensuring that the design of the nature-based solution takes into account ecological, social, and institutional processes operating at different spatial and temporal levels. The third criterion examines whether the intervention results in a net gain for biodiversity and ecosystem integrity, rather than simply minimizing harm. The fourth criterion assesses the economic viability of the nature-based solution, ensuring that it is financially realistic and capable of delivering benefits over the long term. The fifth criterion examines how inclusive, transparent, and empowering governance processes are applied, and whether stakeholders are meaningfully involved in decision-making. The sixth criterion addresses trade-offs, assessing whether potential negative impacts are identified, minimized, and balanced fairly across different groups and objectives. The seventh criterion focuses on adaptive management, looking at how evidence and monitoring data are used to adjust and improve the nature-based solution over time. Finally, the eighth criterion assesses whether the nature-based solution is sustainable in the long term and embedded within an appropriate policy, institutional, and jurisdictional context. In NATMed, the IUCN Global Standard for Nature-Based Solutions was applied in three complementary ways. First, it was used as a diagnostic tool. It helped link baseline conditions and technical specifications to clearly define societal challenges, while also identifying opportunities to improve the proposed interventions. Second, the standard was used as an evaluation framework. This ensured that biodiversity and governance aspects were fully considered, and that interventions such as constructed wetlands, infiltration areas, buffer zones, and smart irrigation systems met the criteria required to be designated as nature-based solutions. Finally, the standard acted as a replication enabler. It supported the alignment of Mediterranean full water cycle nature-based solutions with global frameworks, such as the Sustainable Development Goals and the EU Green Deal, and helped identify good practices that can be mainstreamed and scaled up across other regions. Based on the application of the IUCN Global Standard across NATMed case studies, several practical lessons emerged. In terms of actions to take, the standard should be used from the very start of nature-based solutions planning. This helps validate the relevance of the intervention and identify areas for improvement early on. The criteria should then be revisited during implementation and monitoring, supporting adaptive management over time. Clear documentation of how each criterion is addressed is also essential, as it builds credibility with funders and policymakers. At the same time, there are some important pitfalls to avoid. The standard should not be treated as a checklist applied only at the end of a project, but as a guide throughout the entire process. It should also not be used only to assess environmental benefits, as it places equal emphasis on social, economic, and governance dimensions. Finally, neglecting documentation can undermine transparency and limit opportunities for replication. Complete self-assessment results from all NATMed case studies are presented in Deliverable D4.1, the catalog, which is available on the NATMed website. The IUCN Global Standard for Nature-Based Solutions is applied through a structured self-assessment process. This allows project teams, municipalities, or communities to evaluate whether their nature-based solutions meet the required quality benchmarks. The self-assessment is based on guiding questions and a simple traffic light scoring system, ranging from insufficient to strong, across the 8 criteria and 28 indicators. While the tool produces an overall score, the main objective is not the score itself, but identifying weaknesses, lessons learned, and opportunities for improvement to maximize impact and benefits. 3 main tools support this process. First, the IUCN Self-Assessment Tool, available as an Excel template or online platform, guides users through all criteria and indicators using structured questions and clear scoring guidance. It requires evidence to support each score and generates a visual overview of performance across the criteria. Second, case study fact sheets were used in NATMed to summarize each intervention's alignment with the standard. These fact sheets highlight indicators rated as insufficient or partial and provide targeted recommendations and priority actions for improvement. Third, an updating assessment template was used to revisit and revise scores after implementation and monitoring. This tool supported group reflection, helped document progress, and encouraged discussion and learning among stakeholders rather than individual or one-off scoring. Performance evaluation focuses on verifying whether a nature-based solution delivers the outcomes it promises. Within the IUCN Global Standard for Nature-Based Solutions, this is done through key performance indicators which provide quantitative evidence for assessing performance across the 8 criteria. KPIs make the self-assessment process more objective, comparable, and credible. Experience from NATMed shows that KPIs are essential for evidence-based evaluation. They link baseline conditions, implemented interventions, and observed outcomes directly to the criteria of the standard, supporting adaptive management and early identification of risks. In NATMed, KPIs covering water, soil, biodiversity, and socioeconomic dimensions were used as evidence within the self-assessment templates. These indicators help demonstrate biodiversity net gains, assess economic feasibility, and support adaptive management of nature-based solutions. Building on the role of KPIs in performance evaluation, this slide highlights some key actions to take in practice. KPIs should be defined during the baseline phase and not after implementation has already started. A balanced mix of ecological, hydrological, and socioeconomic indicators should be used to capture the full performance of nature-based solutions. Each KPI should be clearly linked to at least one criterion of the IUCN Global Standard, ensuring that monitoring results directly support the self-assessment process. Finally, results should be documented in accessible formats such as dashboards, graphs, or concise fact sheets to support transparency and communication. Alongside these actions, there are several common pitfalls that should be avoided. Relying only on qualitative evidence, such as narratives or photos, without measurable indicators can weaken credibility. Selecting too many KPIs or indicators that are too complex to monitor over time can also reduce effectiveness. Another important pitfall is disconnecting KPIs from decision-making. Monitoring results should actively feed into adaptive management loops. Finally, it is important to avoid cherry-picking only positive indicators and instead maintain a balanced assessment across all 8 criteria of the IUCN Global Standard. Applying the IUCN Global Standard in NATMed added value in several important ways. It provided a common language across very different Mediterranean case studies, making results more comparable. It also enabled a holistic evaluation, ensuring that nature-based solutions were assessed not only for technical performance, but also for governance, equity, and long-term sustainability. Finally, the process strengthened credibility with stakeholders and policymakers, demonstrating that NATMed interventions align with internationally recognized standards. The application of the standard also revealed important differences across criteria. Criteria related to societal challenges and biodiversity net gain were generally easier to apply and demonstrate. In contrast, governance, trade-offs, and long-term economic sustainability required more effort and were more challenging, often due to time, budget, or institutional constraints. This highlighted where additional support and learning are most needed in NBS projects. It is important to understand how to interpret the results of the self-assessment. The numeric scores do not represent a final judgment on quality or success, but rather indicate where improvements are needed. In NATMed, many interventions were experimental and focused mainly on water-related challenges, which influenced biodiversity and economic results. Overall, the standard functioned primarily as a diagnostic and learning tool, helping case studies identify strengths, gaps, and priorities for improvement. The main takeaway from NATMed is that the IUCN Global Standard works best when used from the very beginning of project design. Strong documentation and clear evidence are essential, as every claim needs to be verifiable. Most importantly, the standard should be treated as an ongoing learning and dialogue process, not a one-off checklist. Repeated assessments help projects improve over time and support replication and mainstreaming of nature-based solutions. The IUCN Global Standard for Nature-Based Solutions is more than a project-level tool. It also acts as a bridge between local practice and regional or national policy frameworks. By applying the standard, NBS projects generate credible and comparable evidence that can support decision-making, funding applications, and replication across Mediterranean regions. NATMed showed that embedding the standard into governance and replication processes helps move from isolated NBS projects towards broader policy integration. From a policy perspective, the standard provides a universal quality benchmark. It helps ensure that public funding supports credible, nature-based solutions, aligns local interventions with European and Mediterranean priorities, and enables comparability across regions. Linking project outcomes to the standard also strengthens trust with stakeholders and opens pathways for structured policy dialogue. When using the IUCN Global Standard in a policy context, it is important to frame project outcomes clearly in relation to the standard's criteria, especially when engaging with regional or EU-level decision-makers. The standard can also be used to support policy briefs and replication packages, providing evidence that is credible and comparable across regions. Linking self-assessment results to national climate adaptation or biodiversity strategies further strengthens policy relevance. At the same time, there are pitfalls to avoid. The standard should not be seen as a purely technical checklist, as its real value lies in building credibility for decision-makers. It should also not be used to oversell results, since local context always matters. Finally, governance, equity, and participation should not be overlooked, as these aspects are often central to policy priorities. While the IUCN Global Standard for Nature-Based Solutions is the most widely recognized quality framework for NBs, it is not the only one. Several international and European standards complement it, focusing on environmental management, ecosystem services, or sustainability reporting. In practice, the IUCN standard acts as an overarching framework, within which other standards and tools can be applied. For Mediterranean stakeholders, being aware of these options helps align nature-based solutions with broader policy objectives, funding requirements, and certification schemes. Nature-based solutions projects often need to align with more than one standard, especially when responding to the requirements of funders, certification schemes, or policy frameworks. In this context, the IUCN Global Standard plays a central role by ensuring credibility at the project level and by covering the full spectrum of topics that a high-quality nature-based solution should address. Other standards, such as ISO, UNEP, or emerging European standards, can then provide more specific technical, management, or sustainability benchmarks. In NATMed, the IUCN Global Standard was used as the core framework. At the same time, the project recognized that linking it with other standards, policies, or tools can further strengthen replication potential and support policy uptake. With this, we conclude the Module A2 on the IUCN Global Standard for nature-based solutions and its use as a self-assessment tool. For access to all NATMed training modules and other useful resources, please visit our website. Thank you for your attendance.